Hi, this is Thomas LaFoe with the Instructional Media Center, and in this tutorial we will be looking at the options available in the Pathfinder palette in Adobe Illustrator. The Pathfinder uses various overlapping shapes to create new ones. Shapes are created using the Shape tool. Click and hold down the Shape tool, and you will see the different options available. In this tutorial we will be using the rectangle, the ellipse, the polygon, and the star tools. I'm going to start with the polygon tool. To see the options of the polygon tool, click once on your artboard. This will allow you to specify a radius as well as the number of sides. I usually leave the radius alone as I can resize it later if needed, but I'm going to change the default number of sides from 6 to 8. Click OK. And now I'm going to draw a rectangle next to my octagon. Click on your Shape tool and hold down and select the Rectangle tool. Click and drag. And now I'm going to change the color so that we can see a difference when we overlap these two. To change the color of each of these shapes, grab your Selection tool, select the shape you want to change, and I'm going to use the options available at the top of the screen to change my fill and stroke colors. Using the Selection tool, I'm going to make sure that the rectangle is just a little bit shorter than the octagon. Now I can use the Selection tool to overlap these two shapes. It is important to remember to switch back to the Selection tool before moving a shape. If you are still on your Shape tool, you will only end up making additional shapes. If this happens, you can easily delete these shapes by going back to your Selection tool, clicking on the unwanted shape, and pressing Delete. After you have the shapes overlapping, select both of the shapes. This can be done by either clicking on one shape, holding Shift and clicking on another, or, if we click off of these two, I can draw a box using the Selection tool. Anything that this box touches will then be selected. To access the Pathfinder, you will want to use the Window menu and then select Pathfinder. Here you see we have 10 different options. We have shape modes, and we also have pathfinders. In this tutorial, we will go through each of these different modes and pathfinders, and in the description below, I've placed timestamps that will allow you to jump to these different tools in case you're just interested in one of these. The first mode that we will look at is the Unite mode. If I mouse over any of these options, you'll see that I get a tooltip that shows me the name of that option. This is the Unite mode. When I click on the Unite mode after I have two overlapping shapes selected, you will see that it blends those two shapes together, and this is called Unite and sometimes Add. If the objects are different colors, the merged shape takes on the color of the topmost object. If I wanted this to stay the purple color, I could use Undo, which is Control-Z, and it will undo that Unite. I'm going to deselect these by clicking in the white area here. Click on my octagon and choose Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. This places the purple octagon on top of the orange rectangle. Now, using my Select tool, I can draw a box and select both of these shapes, use Unite, and you'll see that now it maintains the topmost color, which was purple. I'm going to move this shape out of the way, and then we're going to look at the Subtract or Minus Front option. For this, I'm going to select the Ellipse tool, and if you hold Shift, it will draw a circle. Hold Shift and click and drag, and now we have our circle. I want to duplicate this circle, and this can be done by using Copy-Paste, or I can grab my Selection tool, and holding Alt on the keyboard, I can click and drag to create another copy. On this second copy, I'm going to select it and change my fill color so that we can see the differences between these two, and I'm going to position the two circles so they overlap. Now in this case, you'll notice that right now I have the blue circle, which is the one that I want to keep and make this moon shape, on top of the purple circle. If I mouse over the second mode, it will remind you that this is minus front. So in this case, I want to click in the white space to deselect these two, select my purple circle, and again, using Object, Arrange, I want to choose Bring to Front. Now using the Select tool, I'm going to click and drag and select both of these shapes, and click on that second shape mode, which is minus front. And now I'm left with this blue moon shape. I'm going to move this shape out of the way, and we're going to move to the Intersect shape mode. Here I'm going to select my rectangle tool and draw a rectangle. Then I go back to my ellipse tool and click and draw a circle. If you want a circle that's actually centered directly on top of this rectangle, you can hold down Alt and Shift and click and drag from the center. Again, I'm going to change the color of this circle. I'm going to make a copy of these two shapes by selecting them with the selection tool, holding down Alt, and clicking and dragging. Now when I select the first two shapes, I can use the Intersect option, and you'll see that leaves the part that is overlapping. The next shape mode, or Exclude, if I select the next two shapes and choose Exclude, you'll see that it keeps the parts that aren't overlapping. Now we're going to move to the Pathfinders. I'm going to move these two shapes out of the way. I'm going to draw another circle, select my rectangle tool, and draw a rectangle across the middle. I'm going to grab the selection tool, and I'm going to change the colors of these two shapes. So the first Pathfinder option is Divide. I'm going to select these two shapes, move down to my Pathfinder, and click on Divide. Once you use the Pathfinder, you'll notice that all of the shapes are still moving as one. You'll see that it did add a new stroke through the rectangle because the circle passes through that rectangle. But what we need to do to move these parts individually is to go to Object and Ungroup. Now when I click off of these shapes, I can select them individually and move them. Lines can also be used to divide shapes. In this case, I'm going to grab my line tool, start at the top, and click and drag a line that goes through each of these shapes. If you hold Shift, it will keep the line in either completely horizontal, completely vertical, or 45-degree angles. Here I'm going to click and hold Shift and drag a line straight through the middle of these shapes. Now if I grab my selection tool, select each of these shapes, and here I'm just going to select the ones right in the middle, click Divide, and now it's split these down the middle. Once again, these are grouped together, so I can go to Object, Ungroup. Now I can select each of these objects on the right side and drag them to the left. I'm going to select these and move these out of the way. And we're going to look at the Trim and the Merge tools at the same time. In this case, I'm going to go to my Polygon tool, click once to add a polygon, can change the color, and then I'm going to duplicate that shape 3 times. I'm going to use my selection tool, hold down Alt, and then click and drag 3 times. Now I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and click and drag a rectangle that overlaps these shapes. The Trim and the Merge tools have some different options available based on the colors and the styles of the shapes involved. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and select the rectangles and the right octagons and change these to pink. I'm also going to click away from these and then select just my rectangles and send them to the back using Object, Arrange, and Send to Back. Click in the white space to deselect those. Now I'm going to select my first group and click on Trim. Click away from that group, select my second group, and select Merge. One of the things you will notice is that it looks like both of these have done the same thing. It's removed our strokes, but the way that it worked with these shapes is a little bit different. If I click on this first group, select Object, Ungroup. Now when I click off and then select one of these and drag it to the left, I can select the middle part and drag it to the left, and you can see that it's broken that into 3 different shapes. With the Merge group, however, since the rectangle and the right octagon were both pink, when I click on this group, choose Object, and Ungroup, you will see that when I deselect these and click and drag one, but now it's merged the two pink shapes into one new shape. I'm going to select these groups and move them out of the way. And now we're going to look at the crop Pathfinder. For this, I'm going to use three different shapes. I'm going to start with a rectangle, and we'll go ahead and change that color. I'm going to add an ellipse, and in this case, I'm going to hold down Shift and create a circle. And then I'm also going to use the polygon tool to create a triangle. So I'm going to click here at the top, just once, change the number of sides to 3, click OK, and I'll change that color to blue. Using the crop tool depends on the stacking order of each of these shapes. So I'm going to make 3 more instances of this group. I'm going to use my selection tool, select these shapes, I'm going to hold down Alt, and I'm going to click and drag 3 times. And just so that we can see the different options that are available with the crop tool, I'm going to change the order of some of these shapes. On this second one, I'm going to bring the orange circle to the front by going to Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. On the third one, I'm going to select the rectangle, choose Object, Arrange, Bring to Front. And on this last one, I'm going to bring the orange circle to the front by using Object, Arrange, Bring to Front, and then also bring the rectangle to the front. So I'm going to select the rectangle, go to Object, Arrange, and Bring to Front. Now when I select this first group and choose Crop, you can see that it uses the topmost shape to crop away everything else. I'm going to do the same thing with the second group. Select these objects and choose Crop. Do the same with the third group, and the same with the last group. So what happens with this crop tool is it uses the topmost shape as sort of a cookie cutter. It eliminates the color of that shape, but then shows the other shapes through that one. So if I select the first group, you'll see that it's still the triangle, but it's only showing parts of the orange circle and the green rectangle. On the second group, the circle was on top, so it's showing parts of the blue triangle and the green rectangle. On the third group, the rectangle was on top, so its color goes away, and it shows me the blue triangle and the orange circle. On the last group, the color of the rectangle goes away, and the only difference is that the orange circle was on top of the blue triangle. I'm going to select these shapes and move these out of the way. And the next Pathfinder is the Outline Pathfinder. For this, I'm going to select the Star tool. Just like with the Polygon tool, with the Star tool I can click once on the artboard, and I see my options. The first radius is the distance of the outer points from the center, and the second radius is the distance of the inner points from the center. And you can also change the number of points that are included in that star. I'm going to leave these options the same and click OK. I'm going to use my selection tool to position this. Then I'm going to grab my ellipse tool. I'm going to move to the center of this star. I'm going to hold down Alt and Shift. And what this will let me do is draw a complete circle from the center of that star. I'm going to change the color of the circle so we can see a difference here. Grab my selection tool, and you can use your arrow keys just to nudge this in one direction or another. Now with my selection tool, I'm going to select both of these shapes, and then I'm going to click on the Outline Pathfinder. Outline is another Pathfinder that at first glance may seem to do nothing, but as you use it you'll see that it's sort of like Divide, but the results instead of shapes are individual line segments. One important thing to note here is if I click away from this shape, it will look like it disappears. But what I can do is use my selection tool and draw a box to select all of those paths, and using my stroke options at the top of the screen, I can increase the weight of those strokes. Now when I select Object and Ungroup, I can now move these pieces apart. In this case, if I wanted to move the points, I could click on the first point, hold Shift, and then click to select my other points. Now when I let go of Shift and click and drag, you can see I can separate out those points. I can do the same thing with pieces of the circle. I can click on one, hold down Shift, and then click on the others. Now when I let go of Shift and click and drag, I now have those pieces of the circle. I can do the same with the inner points. Click on one, hold Shift, and then click to select the others. Click and drag. And now you can see that outline takes different shapes, breaks them into outlines, and then those outlines into separate pieces. I'm going to select these and move them out of the way. And now we can look at the minus back Pathfinder. Minus back does just the opposite of the subtract or minus front that we looked at in the shape modes. And in this case, I'm going to start with the ellipse tool, hold down Shift, and draw a circle. I'm going to give this a fill color, position it a little with my selection tool, and then I'm going to select a rectangle and click and drag. Now with my selection tool, if I draw a box to select both of these, I can then use the minus back, and you'll see that now it cuts out that circle from the rectangle. The Pathfinder palette offers many options that allow you to create complex shapes by overlapping simple shapes. I hope that this tutorial serves as an introduction to these options, and if you ever need any more assistance, please visit our website at library.msstate.edu/IMC for more tutorials and PDFs of our workshop handouts. Thanks for watching.